Hi everyone, Tori here with another Scrap Your Scraps video. I've decided that for the next few Sundays, I'm going to do some process videos where I show you different ways to scrap your scraps. I don't know about you, but I collect a lot of scrap paper and it just tends to pile up. And so I thought it would be fun if I showed you a whole bunch of different ways to use up those scraps. I store mine in a red cookie tin and it just sort of piles up. So I like to every once in a while make some layouts where I just use scrap paper and I use a whole bunch of pattern paper scraps. So I have two layouts to show you today where I'm using punching and folding. So I'm going to be using my paper punches and I also will be folding the images or the cutouts that I use with my paper punches in order to make fun backgrounds and layouts. So the first one I'm doing here, I am using a circle punch, which I have folded into little squares, and this is something that I saw Paige Evans do, so it's totally dedicated to and inspired by her. So go check out Paige Evans, who has the most amazing pages, and this technique is definitely from her that I learned this one, and then I use that technique which I learned from her to make my own, which will be the second layout that I make. So basically it's really easy. I just grabbed a whole bunch of pattern paper and I punched a whole bunch of circles and then I folded them all into little squares by folding in each side, and then I lined them up into 5 rows, straightened those out, and glued those down. And I have sped it up a lot because this was a pretty long process, but I really love the way the page turns out. It has so much dimension and I love all the color and it works out really well. So a couple things I wanted to say just as I'm working on that, and you can just listen and watch, I guess. I am planning on doing some of these Scrap Your Scrap videos every Sunday for the next few at least. I have at least 4, so hopefully the next 4 Sundays I'll have one of those, and then I have a ton of ideas, so maybe I'll be able to come up with even more. So hopefully I encourage you to use your scraps too. A couple other things about my scrap stash. I made a promise to myself when I started scrapbooking that I would never have more scraps than what fit in one cookie tin. So literally, I don't put any more scraps than what fits in one red cookie tin, and I do show you the cookie tin later, but I don't take any more than that, and I only keep the patterns that I really love. So if there's a color or a pattern that I really don't like, I don't keep that. I only keep the colors and the patterns that I like and I know that I'll want to use again. And I just cut those into pieces that I can use and put those in the cookie tin. And then on a regular basis, I make layouts like this or like the other ones where I'll show you where I scrap my scraps. So that's the cookie tin that I was telling you about. You can fit a lot of scraps in there, and there's a whole bunch of different pattern papers, scraps left over from layouts, things like that, and they're all in there. So I made 2 layouts, and what I did is I made the backgrounds and then I added the photos and the embellishments. So the second layout I made is sort of similar, and I used a hexagon punch, which I did use on my last Scrap the Scraps video. Both of the circle punch and the hexagon punch that I used for these 2 layouts, I used the scraps, but I also used these punches, and they're from, I think they're Fisker's punches. They're really great. I love them. I don't have a lot. I just have circle, a hexagon, another circle, and I think a snowflake. So, okay, so what I'm showing you here is I did the first background with the squares. The second background that I did the same way. I had punched out all the hexagons and then I folded them. And this was just an idea I had. I was like, I wonder if I could replicate the technique from the first page where I was inspired by Paige Evans. So I took the hexagons and I folded them in half or almost half, leaving a little bit of the color, which I'm showing you here how I did it. And I folded it in half, and then I just layered them all up into 2 rows. And I love the way that it looks. It looks like chevrons pointing up. It's so pretty. And both of these layouts have so much dimension and so much beautiful color because of the pattern paper, and I think they're going to be really fun to use as backgrounds for my pages. So now that I have the 2 backgrounds done, I'm going to show you how I finished off these pages and worked with those super busy backgrounds and those super dimensional pages. I did similar things on both layouts. I decided I wanted to use old family photos to scrap because I wanted to scrap some of my old family photos. So this is a photo of my brother and I when we were obviously very young. And I decided to use that on the page. So one of the things I knew is that because of the busyness of the pattern paper, I needed to keep the rest of the layout quite simple. Otherwise, it would just be too much to look at. So first, I want to draw your attention up to where the photo is. So I was trying to find something that I could put on the left-hand side and something I could put on the right-hand side so that it would draw your attention into the photo rather away from it. And even though there's a lot going on with the pattern paper, I feel like what I've done has brought your attention there. So I'm using a number of different die cuts and ephemera pieces from Dear Lizzie or the crepe paper, which are my two favorite. Like, I love Maggie Holmes and I love Dear Lizzie, and I love Paige Evans, and I love Wilna Furstenberg. Those are like my four favorite scrapbookers slash designers slash people. people. So I'm using those die cuts and those ephemera pieces, and I had this one frame, and I thought it would be good because it was subtle enough that it didn't detract from the photo, but the fact that it framed the photo a little bit by putting one on one side and one on the other side helped draw your attention into the photo of my brother and I. And I also grabbed that camera because it looked sort of vintage and I felt like it fit with the older photo, as well as the word recorded, which was on a vellum piece, and I believe that is a crepe paper piece of ephemera. I also had two butterflies, a blue one and a purple one, which I think are come from a Dear Lizzie ephemera pack, and I just wanted to add something to that middle section where all the pattern paper was, just a piece of something, to some detail there. And I thought the butterfly would work really well. And I've decided that I am going to begin working on a photo album of old family photos. And one of the ways that I'm going to help make the entire album come together and fit together is I'm going to put butterflies on each page. Just because, I don't know, something about butterflies just makes me, reminds me of childhood. I don't know what it is. I think they're playful and they're fun and they just remind me of childhood, as well as, I don't know, butterflies are totally like, they mean a lot to me because they're like about new life and growing and blooming into yourself. I don't know, I'm getting all philosophical or something. So, but there will be butterflies on each page. So I thought this purple, pink one and the blue one were perfect for this layout because it looked like they matched my brother and my outfit, and it's like two of us, the two butterflies. I'm sorry I'm a little off screen, but I'm just adding something to the bottom. I added a vintage bike and a label. I also decided to punch out some circles using this little tiny circle punch just to add a little bit of circles onto the page. And I'm going to put those throughout that bottom section just by using my hot glue gun. Just adding a little extra something something. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to add my journaling, and that's pretty much the page. So a couple tips you can learn from this page for scrapping your scraps is, one, use lots of pieces of pattern paper, and it's okay if they don't all go together, and two, use a solid color background to simplify the front. After that, I added my journaling, and then I moved on to the second page, which is the one where I used the hexagons turned into chevrons. And I'm scrapping another old family photo, another photo of my brother and I from when we were even younger than that other photo. And I decided to place the chevrons on a pattern paper this time. So instead of using a solid cardstock, I did use pattern paper, but it is a B side, so it's a little simpler than the other side. It just has, it's white with those little black dots. So then I'm going to add my photo. And if you're wondering why I chose this photo to go with this layout, I felt like the hexagons on the side running down two straight lines made the layout look very vertical, and so I thought a vertical photo would look better than a horizontal photo, and I really like the way that it turns out, so that's why I've used that photo. Then I ended up using one full 6x6 paper as the mat. So on one side I put it right up to the edge, and then I'm going to use the other side for my journaling. Now I'm just adding some stamping for my title. And this stamp set is a stamp set that was part of the new class over at Studio Calico taught by Paige Evans, and it was just a stamp set that came when you signed up for the class, and it's really awesome. It's big and it has these fun designs on it. So I stamped it with black Memento Tuxedo ink on white cardstock, and then I'm just fussy cutting around those letters. And I'm going to use that for my title, and the title is going to be The Two of Us. And I'm just going to arrange that above the photo of my brother and I for the title. And then I will hot glue gun that down. After that, I decided I wanted to add some other embellishments for the rest of the page. So I'm just looking for some other things that I can use and trying to dig through it to see if what I want to use on the page. Now, one of the things that I have found works really well on these layouts where I'm scrapping my scraps and it's busier is when I keep the rest of the page quite simple. So I did that on the other layout by not adding a ton of stuff, but I'm going to do that on this layout as well. So my title, The Two of Us, is quite simple. It's black and the font is pretty simple, as well as where I do my journaling, and the rest of my embellishments will be fairly simple so that I don't detract from the photo or from the really awesome layering that I've done with the pattern paper. So as I had said, I want to use butterflies on this layout as well so that it ties this layout into the rest of the album of my childhood, which will all have butterflies on it. So I had this two green butterflies that were sort of like layered vellum that I got at my local scrapbook store. And I'm going to place two of them on there, one for me, one for my brother. I also placed a flare badge, which I got in this month's Studio Calico Carolina Moon scrapbook kit. I also wanted to let you know that the paper, the pattern paper that I'm using for the background also came from this month's Carolina Moon scrapbook kit. Then I used my white Sakura gel pen just to add my journaling on that white part. And that's it, the page is done. Sorry about the camera there. Just slowed it down so I can show you how it worked, and it works perfectly. I've used punches and folding to make this Scrap Your Scraps video work, and I used lots of my scraps, and I'm super happy about the way that it turned out. I hope that I've inspired you to use up some of your scraps and to use your punches in a brand new way. Hope you have a lovely day. Thanks for joining me. Bye.